Praise God. I hope you're having a blessed day today. This is the day the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. Praise God. Today we're getting into Matthew chapter 18, moving to a new chapter here. Matthew chapter 18, and Jesus speaks about humbling ourselves as a little child. And actually he does this because the disciples ask a question about who was going to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So let's read the scriptures here. Chapter 18, verse number 1. At the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child, and he set him in the midst of them, and he said, Verily I say unto you, except you be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Unless you be converted and become as little children, you will not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever will humble himself as a little child will be great in the kingdom of heaven. Praise God. Now, sometimes we want to think about, who's great and, who's mighty, and we think about our, the list of things we've done or things we may have done or accomplishments we've made and different things. Those things, I'm not trying to belittle those things. Thank God for the accomplishments. Thank God for, ministers that have built big churches and have done great things, and for people that have done great things in the church and around the church and for the church and given money to the church. And, all of those things are wonderful. And I'm not trying to belittle those things. But here's what Jesus said when addressed with this question directly: who will be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? He said the one that is the most humble, and the one that will humble himself as a little child. Now we know that children are humble because, just the fact. Now that doesn't mean children are not mischievous. We know all children are very mischievous and can be extremely devious at times and other things. But children also have that quality about them of humility. They have a quality about them of, even though they're wrong and even though they get in the middle of stuff they shouldn't be in, they just can, sense, and when they're disciplined, they humble themselves and so forth and all of those things. Children have that ability, and they're young and they're innocent. And like I said, not that they never do anything wrong, because we've raised children, and if you've raised children, you know how they can get in stuff. They can get in stuff they're not supposed to be into. They can say things they're not supposed to say, do things they're not supposed to do. But it ain't. But at the same time, we look at it and say, well, they're children, and we've got to be more understanding because they are. But Jesus said this. He said, if you want to be great in the kingdom of heaven, he said, you'll have to humble yourself and be converted and become as a little child. You'll have to humble yourself and be converted and become as a little child. Converted here means it means to turn. To turn. It means to turn away from something. And of course, it would mean to turn away from pride. It would mean to turn away from sin. It would mean to turn away from the things of the world that would cause us to have pride and selfishness, self-centeredness in our life. Yes, we turn away from those things. We turn to Him. We humble ourselves. And by humbling ourselves, even though it's an exact opposite, remember earlier Jesus talked about if you want to save your life, you lose your life. If you want to gain your life, if you want to gain your life, you lose your life. He says, but if you try to gain your life, you'll lose your life. So it was the opposite there. It was a play on words. If you find it, if you try to find it, you'll lose it. If you lose it, you'll find it, so to speak. He says here, if you want to be great, he says, don't try to be the strongest and the proudest and the mightiest. He said, be the humblest. Be the humblest. Later on, he explained it even better in the book of John to his disciples when he washed their feet. He said, you call me master. He said, but I wash your feet. Jesus, if you remember, he took off his robe, he tied a towel around him, and so to speak, he took a towel, he washed their feet, and he showed them the humility that they were supposed to have. He said, I, as your master, wash your feet, you should wash one another's feet. And so he teaches them here the greatest example ever about humility. And he says here, he said, if you want to be great, humble yourself as a child, become a servant. Praise God. Hope you have a blessed day. Look forward to another devotion tomorrow. God bless you.